have over 100. Welcome to our guests coming online. We had over 100 people register for this webinar today, so thank you for joining us. We'll get started in just a moment. We will be recording this and using it for to promote this information broadly, so more people can access it, of course. And I hope you appreciate this is a free webinar sponsored by our funders. Okay, so it's at 10 o'clock. We have 26 people on. We have 100 registered. So I'm just going to talk slowly here for a minute to welcome everyone to our webinar as people start logging in. My name is Heidi Sanborn. I'm the Executive Director, Founding Director of the National Stewardship Action Council, which is our 501c4, and also our sister organization, the Stewardship Action Foundation, which is a 501c3, which does the education and outreach for the National Stewardship Action Council. This webinar we did choose to use, in SAC, we are talking about a little bit about regulations and how they're being implemented. And I will talk again for just another minute to let a few more people get on. We're at 38 people, but I want to thank our speakers today. We have Chris Smith, who is representing Inmar, the company that's running one of the programs. He's going to get into the details about that. The Med Project rejected joining us today. We've asked them multiple times and offered different timeframes. Unfortunately, they were not willing or could join us. So we are sharing what we can of their program. We also have with us Ashley, Louisiana, and she's going to talk about her experience with the program from Contra Costa County. And then we also have Sonoma County's Courtney. Where did she go? I don't see her anymore. So, and Courtney, there she is, Courtney Scott. So she is with Zero Waste Sonoma and has been working in the space a very long time. And she can speak from Sonoma's perspective. They ended up with fires, as you recall. They couldn't get their ordinance passed in time. So they are now operating under the state program. So we're very excited to have them all here and to have all of you here to share with us your issues. One of which I was trying to remember before this call and now remembered that the mail back programs are not fitting in some of the mailboxes. So we'll talk about that in just a minute. So again, welcome to everybody. We're up to 53 participants, which is about half of who registered. And again, we are recording this, so it will be shared freely on the internet, our YouTube page, social media, etc. Again, I'm Heidi Sanborn, Director of the National Stewardship Action Council. I want to thank our team, Jordan Wells, who is in charge of our communications and advocacy and is our registered in-house lobbyist here in California. And then also Victoria Reiser, who's going to be recording this and helping you all get in and out of the program. So I'm going to start and kick off the webinar, kind of give you the lay of the land, how we got here. As we go through the PowerPoints and the speakers, if you have any clarifying questions, meaning you do not understand what I just said, what Ashley said, then please put in the chat the clarifying question, and we will get to that at the end of that person speaking. If you have a different question, hold that till the end, and then we can open up microphones and let people speak and ask their questions. Okay, so with that, I'll go ahead and kick it off. So again, welcome to our SB 212 webinar, California's statewide medication and needle extended producer responsibility implementation webinar, what local governments need to know. And this is very, very important for you to save a lot of money after a lot of hard work so that you have a good medicine and needle collection program, not at your expense. Our vision here at the National Stewardship Action Council is that the United States attain an equitable circular economy. And we do that through advocacy. And we worked very, very hard for many years to pass SB 212 in 2018. It's now being implemented, but we've realized it's not being fully realized on the benefits from local governments, which is why we're doing the webinar. So go ahead and we'll go to the next slide. So again, we have a national C4 organization, nonprofit, which advocates and does lobbying. That is the National Stewardship Action Council. We want to make sure that producers fairly share in the responsibility for an equitable circular economy. And then we have the Stewardship Action Foundation, our sister 501c3, which does a lot of education and outreach to support the work of the National Stewardship Action Council. We want to attain an equitable circular economy in the United States. It's going to take a lot of work. And we do that through collaborations with public, private, and nonprofit stakeholders to achieve that. So that is who we are. If you have any questions, we're happy to take them offline. And we'd love to see you join if you haven't joined already. One of the two. You can join. Local governments typically join the C3. Others join the C4. And the reason is that governments have a hard time legally supporting a C4 in advocacy and lobbying. Next slide, please. So I want to get to what is the circular economy and making sure we do it equitably. But I want to remind everybody very quickly, if your bathtub is overflowing, what do you do first? It's not grab the mop, it's turn off the spigot. And that is the same with the circular economy. And so we'll go to the next slide, please. And I will remind you also, we've been very good in local government at grabbing the mop and trying to clean it up. But until we turn off the spigot and get help, we are not going to be able to clean up the mess. It's too big, it's too costly. So a circular, and we advocate is again for a circular and equitable economy. What is it? And what we believe is we follow the Ellen MacArthur Foundation definition, which is first turning off the spigot, designing waste and pollution out of the system. And I will talk about how that applies to meds and sharps. Then we keep materials in use and in motion as best we can. And then we go back and regenerate the natural systems that we've harmed. And we need to decouple economic activity and growth from consumption of finite resources. That is a trajectory that is not sustainable in any way, shape, or form. So when it comes to medicines and needles, the first thing is I call, most of these problems are what I call onion issues. There's many, many layers of problems. And it takes us many, many years to get to the core sometimes and get a full circular economy on a product. Now, to turn off the spigot on medicines and needles, there's a couple things that can be done. One, we need these products. There are some times that we just have to have them. There's no question. But can we reduce how much is coming available as waste? We certainly can. We've heard many, many times how seniors, for example, get on auto ship for 3-month supplies of medicines. They pass, or they have passed, and nobody's turning off that spigot, and they keep being shipped to their house. We had a gentleman with a pickup full of boxes of his parents because they had passed and nobody had bothered to call and turn off the auto ship. Just giving people what they need, not over prescribing, and so forth, and giving people just a small amount until they're sure they don't have a reaction. But with needles, can we move that type of delivery mechanism to maybe a patch or a pill or something else? That would avoid the use of needles. But there are some things that just need a needle to be used. And there's some drugs that will go unused. So we just want to make sure that they're properly collected, properly managed. And I want to highlight that too. EPA says the best thing we can do with medicines is incineration, because that is destruction. That is just what EPA says. And, I've heard people say we should compost them. I have no idea how that would be safe. I don't know if every microorganism eats medicines. Needles could be recycled. They're surgical steel with plastic. Not all of them are. We would encourage the two organizations to do their best to try and recycle them as best they can. But they're not all getting recycled. A lot of them are getting autoclaved. So that's just the path that we're on. And hopefully we'll get to the place where they're circular completely. Next slide, please. And there's a lot of history on EPR in California, as you all know. I just want to point out that the push to get producers to be responsible has been long and very hard. And it has been the focus of my entire career. Medicines and Sharps was a crowning moment in 2018. It took us many, many years. The first ordinances were passed in 2012, fought all the way to the Supreme Court. I'll get into that in a minute. So this was a very, very, very hard-earned bill, and I want you to benefit from it. But since then, we've also done loose batteries and packaging, which I worked very hard on, the SB 54, and they've all learned the lessons from previous versions of bills and gained improvements all the way through. So we're always trying for constant improvement. Next slide, please. So there's a lot of background, but the thing about medicines and needles was, for the first time, we had a product that was not just a waste problem. It was a public health problem. It was an environmental problem, worker safety issue. We had people getting stuck with needles on the sort line. We still do, but it is dropping from what I can tell. It's very hard to document for a lot of reasons I can get into. But as you know, opioids going on the market led to addiction. And then when people couldn't get them, they turned to heroin. And then the needles started ending up on the streets, and people were being told by the FDA to flush their medicines. So we asked them to please stop doing that. And then needles were ending up everywhere because they turned to heroin and street drugs when they couldn't get the opioids. It was just absolutely awful time. So we had a lot of support from water groups, sanitation agencies, broad stakeholders pushing for this policy. Next slide, please. And governments were spending a lot of money trying to clean all this up. So we did, the first ordinance was passed in Alameda County in 2012. Pharma in 2014, as predicted and promised, sued them. And it went all the way through the Ninth Circuit to the US Supreme Court. And Alameda won at every step. The Supreme Court denied hearing it. And Supervisor Nate Miley, who had led the charge, said, "We will win legally and will win in the court of public opinion as well." And I believe that is true. So this literally laid the legal rules of the road for EPR to be used by local governments anywhere in the country on any product that has a health and safety impact. It was a huge deal. And I'm not sure people fully appreciate what a big deal it is still to this day, but it's exciting. So onward we go towards 212. Next slide, please. And medication EPR ordinances started popping up. So Alameda went first, then San Francisco, and I literally was at every single one of these hearings. We only lost one vote from one county supervisor in Santa Barbara. All the others were unanimous. But you can see the amount of work all of you did with us to get this done. And in 2018, Los Angeles County had their 6th hearing. That's me testifying for NSAC. At one of the hearings, and they literally had a wall of lobbyists in the back trying to fight it. We basically scared them to the table finally to negotiate SB 212. And Sonoma County, because of the fires, they got distracted and obviously had to take care of that, and didn't pass their ordinance until after the preemption was in the bill, because we had such a good bill. I will not encourage, have any preemption for anything that already happened. They are opt-in to the program. If they want to get rid of their ordinance and do the state program, they can, but it's an opt-in option, not a mandate. For those that come after the bill, because it was such a good bill, we said, okay, they can be preempted. But we'd like to hear from Courtney on that and how it's working. Next slide, please. So as you can see, years and years of hard work. We even started, as I said, it's an onion issue with Senator Hannah Jackson. We were so frustrated trying to pass the bills in 2013 and 14 that we sent a letter to all the local governments from Senator Jackson's office saying, you need to start passing ordinances or I can't get this bill done. And it worked. And then a lot of you rose to the occasion and we got it passed. Next slide, please. So I'm trying to remind everybody how hard this was to make sure that you benefit from this. So again, getting it done statewide, we had then more bills. We passed the bill in 2015 to protect, again, part of the onion to peel away the problems, was to protect the collectors of medicines from liability or civil damages from having the bin on the premise. It was a big fear of pharmacies to put them in the pharmacy without this protection. So we passed that bill first. And then in 2017, was introduced SB 212. It's a very strong bill. There's big fines, $50,000 a day fines. They have to have one site for every 50,000 people in the county for collection, and every single pharmacy or sheriff's office or hospital that can collect legally medications, if they ask for a bin, they have to be given one in 90 days. First in the nation with both products. So this was a very big deal. Next slide, please. It's still the only one in the nation that has both medicines and needles. And it was, again, that unlikely bedfellows, which is why it was so successful. We had environmentalists, we had water districts, we had local governments that ran HHW programs. We had the whole gamut of support, and Mothers Against Drug Abuse and so forth. Next slide, please. And that's why it worked. And the haulers were very supportive and testified because of the needle sticks their employees were exposed to and having. The best practices for the bill, I could get into a lot of details, but I won't. I will just say we have, source reduction. Well, in this bill, we couldn't do source reduction targets because, again, it's medication. It's a very different animal. Eco-modulation, we didn't get in this bill. We got convenience standards that were very, very strong. The voluntary opt-in, where we protected counties that had already passed the bills from, forcing them into the state program. We protected them on that. We require quick or immediate local government reimbursement. I remember when the needle manufacturers came to me and said, we don't want to really work with pharma. We want to do a mail back. We don't want to do bins. And I said, only under two conditions. One is that they get a container at point of sale, so no needle ends up in the trash or being flushed, or in a pop bottle in a recycling center, which is happening. And two, if the program fails and local governments still have needles coming to their HHW facilities, you have to pay for it. And they walked away for quite a bit of time, a few days. We weren't sure if the bill was alive or dead. And then they came back and said, okay. And the reason that's important, it's the first time producers have been made to reimburse local governments for the cost of their product at an HHW facility. It was precedent setting. That was a big deal. So we want you to get the money back if you're having any costs associated with these two products. So next slide, please. Other states have done only pharmaceutical bills. They have not done needles. They have various levels of success. I believe ours has been the most successful to date based on what I've seen, but I haven't seen everything. So maybe Chris has other opinions on that. He's probably seeing more than I am at this point on implementation. But these are the other states that have passed pharmaceutical bills. Next slide, please. So the two producer-run organizations are the Drug Take Back Solutions Foundation, who Chris represents. And we put some links up here and some information about, and he's going to talk more about this, of course, about how HHWs can get reimbursed. What does that look like? Here's an email address, how you get, disposal kiosks and mail back for sharps, et cetera. And then the Med Project, which was the first PRO to show up, worked with Alameda County, and their links are there as well. And this is, again, all on the slide deck. We'll be happy to send it to you all after the webinar. Next slide, please. They both have their own forms to fill out to get sharps mail back. So for customers, especially homebound customers, this is a great option. So just want to make sure you know those are, and again, Chris will talk more about this. Next slide, please. At least from Drug Take Back Solutions perspective. And for local HHW reimbursement, you can register. This is the Med Project page, and Chris will talk about theirs so that you can get registered and get reimbursement. But the responsibility lies with the local agency, that is local governments, to submit a request for one of these pros to reimburse you. And that is important. You have to ask. If you're not asking, please ask. And that's why Chris is here. Hopefully he can get more people asking them, because that's part of their compliance, is having good, robust working relationships with all of you. Next slide, please. We wanted to also highlight, while we have you here, that the FDA has a request by next Monday to give them our feedback on disposal systems for opioids. Deterra has lobbied pretty darn hard to get the FDA to basically, really push and promote these in-home medicine solutions. Now, to me, this is extra waste that ends up in a landfill. That's not helpful, but they're pushing it quite hard, and it's pretty much unanimous by everybody we work with across the country that they universally oppose these products for a lot of reasons, including some of them have actually been reverse engineered to get the drugs back out. So we want to just let you know, we're going to submit a comment letter that we don't really think this is the right way to go, that the way we're doing it through this program is the way to go. So if you have any questions or would like to sign on to this letter and help us tell the FDA that, please email Jordan at jordan@nsaction.us, and she will send you the model letter and the sign on. In fact, we'll probably, when we're done, email it to all of you on this webinar. So you just have a quick, easy way to sign on if you'd like to that letter to tell the feds no more waste. Next slide, please. So I'm going to wrap up my part of this. I just want to say this is being done for free because of our funders. It's very hard to stay funded as a nonprofit. And I would encourage you all, if you haven't joined one of our 2 organizations, please do so. It's only $150 a year for an individual. It's $500 a year or more for corporations. We work with you. You can sponsor things. You can sponsor even webinars if you have a specific topic. But we do really hard work that's niche and kind of behind the scenes, and we need to stay funded. So please help us if you can. Follow us on social media. That's free. Share our posts. That helps too. But my hope is that 20 years from now, nothing goes onto the market that has no end-of-life program in place. So that is my career and my focus of my career. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Victoria, who's going to play a short little video that we just found yesterday that CalRecycle sent out about this program, just so you all know it's there and you can share it too.
It's now easier than ever for Californians to prevent unwanted or unused medication from getting into the wrong hands. Just drop meds off in a collection bin or mail them back.
You can also prevent accidental needle stick injuries by using free mail-back programs.
CalRecycle approved California's first ever statewide industry-run programs dedicated to safe medication and sharps waste disposal. It's easy and convenient. Just look for medication drop boxes at participating pharmacies, hospitals, sheriff's stations, and other locations. You can also receive free mail-back materials when you buy new needles. Scan this QR code now for more information.
So thank you, Victoria, for playing that video, and thanks to CalRecycle for producing it. Want to make sure you had all seen it. We'll also, when we follow up from this webinar, send you a link to that so you can share it with your folks too, or we'll post it and ask you and tag all of you so you can quickly see it and share it. So with that, I will go ahead now. Are there any clarifying questions to anything I said in the chat? It doesn't look like I see anything. So with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to Chris Smith with Drug Take Back Solutions Foundation. Chris, thank you so much for being here. We so appreciate your willingness to share your program with all the attendees.
Yeah, thank you, Heidi. Appreciate it, and glad to be a part of this today. So really appreciate the opportunity to come and speak with everybody, and more so extend my gratitude for everything that you do in your communities, everybody who's joining us today. I'm a pharmacist by trade, so this means an awful lot to me that we're keeping our communities safe with what's coming through the pipeline. As you know, my mission as a pharmacist was to care for my patients. I like the opportunity here to care for our environment now through this as well. So thank you all for everything you do. So we can move to the next slide. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the how. I think Heidi did a great job of covering, SB 212 and what's going on in California. I really want to talk about how you all out there can engage with our program. So again, this is really a mission on what the Drug Take Back Solutions Foundation is. We just want to make sure that we're able to serve you, we're able to serve the citizens of California, and make sure that, all the things that Heidi talked about that y'all work so hard for actually happen on the ground. Next slide. So what's included in our program? So really what we're trying to do is go after this with an all of the above methodology. So again, various disposal methods. I'll talk about those disposal methods here in depth in just a minute. Compliance standpoint in terms of DEA, DOT compliant programs, in terms of how things get shipped, how things get disposed of, where we can have kiosks, where we cannot have kiosks. And then finally, think about all those ways that both you as HHWs, various stakeholders on this call, ultimate users, California residents can interact with us to make sure that they have all of the various options that are afforded through our program available to them in a manner that's compliant with the statutes and regs. Next slide. Okay. So we have 4 options and ways that the ultimate users and our HHWs can engage with us to facilitate the program. Number 1, we have our kiosk program. We're working with a number of different pharmacy stakeholders and law enforcement to get these installed ubiquitously across the state of California. I can tell you it has been a labor of love, an uphill battle. It's something we're working on every day. We did have a very successful trade show here actually just last week in your neck of the woods in San Diego, where the entire pharmacy industry descends upon a convention hall. We had a great show there last week, and we're looking to grow our kiosk footprint beyond where it is today. I think many of you are familiar with the mail-back programs. So again, the mail-back programs can be distributed far and wide, and I'll tell you a little bit about how to get those mail-back kits ordered. Sharps containers are absolutely part of the program on the Sharp side. I know Heidi talked a lot about this. We're very passionate about this. Sharps containers, we've got, one-off ordering, we've got bulk ordering. And so I'm going to talk a lot more about how you engage with us on there too. And then the topic that I know you're all very interested in is reimbursement. When those things do wind up back at your facilities, how you can get reimbursed. We have a way for that to take place too. And I know it's working because I'm getting invoices from some of you. So we certainly we know that there is some awareness out there, but we really want to engender more awareness to all of you, such that you're not on the hook for any of this again, like Heidi mentioned. Next slide. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about mail-back envelopes for the drug side. So I think I'm going to make one caveat right here before we dive into how these things are how you're going to interact with this. So right now you're going to see a lot of references to the safemedicinedrop.com website. I will have everyone know that there is an ongoing effort underway between the Drug Take Back Solutions Foundation and MedProject to co-operate a joint website. That work is going along as planned. We are on schedule for that at the last update that I received. Look for that to come to life somewhere in and around October of 2023. So today, safemedicinedrop.com will take care of all these things for you. Very, very soon, we will have that uniform website, one program website that both us and MedProject are working on. So mail-back envelope. So again, to be compliant with the program, right? So anywhere that does not have a DEA license, so someone who couldn't have a kiosk can absolutely distribute the mail-back envelopes. And so those come in the packages of 20 or 50. And you can display them outwardly. It's a fairly simple kit to set up, and again, all free. To order those, and I'll show you this in depth a little bit later, but again, it's safemedicinedrop.com. And that would be the way that you get in is through a zip code, right? So a California zip code. Obviously, you guys know when we're testing our website, we always use 90210 because it's the one that we all remember. But just enter your California zip code, and it will give you the option of either the medication program in California, which again leads to getting the mailback envelopes, and it's very simple to order. Put in a name, address, and how many you want, and those will be sent right to you. Or you can choose the Sharps program, and then there's a couple of options there. So again, the mailer program, very, very simple. Hand out the mailers once the ultimate user has those filled. Just simply seal them and drop it in the USPS outgoing mail, and they go directly to destruction. As you all know, on these programs, as program operators and incinerators, we do not open these. We cannot inspect them. We do not do anything other than collect a weight and then send them immediately for destruction. So that's how all that works. Next slide, please. Sharps. Okay, so there's a couple of different ways that we can do Sharps. So we can do Sharps individually to a consumer. That can be initiated through our website, again, safemedicinedrop.com. And the containers will get there within five business days. The other way that I think most people are going to be interested with here is to get a bulk order. So we can do bulk shipments, and that again is up to 24 units directly to you, so you can keep those on hand. So again, all of that comes turnkey program, free for all the users, A to Z, prepackaged shipping. Again, simply drop it into United States Postal Service outgoing mail, and that comes directly to us. Again, right now, again, that's through Safe Medicine Drop, but again, that will be aligning with the full site program with Med Project here shortly. So next slide, please. All right, here you go. Here is the how, so you all know what to do on this. So the first slide here again is the first step is to enter your zip code, your California zip code. So again, there we have the 90210. If you click on California Medicine, that is going to take you to the mail back envelope ordering ingestion page, right? Simply name, address, how many you want, and out it goes. The California Sharps mailback, if you click there, it'll take you to this page. If you can advance to the next slide, please. There you go. So it asks you how many Sharps you want. Again, this is the idea. Is the web address? No. So James, great question. I do not think we have the URL published at this time. So thank you for that pop-up question. I'll try to check here while Courtney is talking, and I'll see if I can get you an address before the end of the program, but I don't think we have that yet. So here, if you wanted to order for one person, simply I need one. The max you can get on this page is 3 Sharps containers. So that's the max that we will submit through there. Now, if you are at HHW or somewhere where you think you're going to need more than 3, and that's probably a big chunk of you, if you see that bottom sentence right there, if you are ordering on this on-site containers in bulk, click here. There's a portal that can take you to, that link will take you to, where you can register to be a bulk provider. Once you're registered, it's 2 clicks to get an order. So up to 24. All it takes is 2 clicks once you're registered. So very simple, quick, hit the order button, 2 clicks, and your up to 24 units are on their way. So I think that's probably more likely that what most of you on this call today will do, but we certainly support ordering in bulk, so you don't have to continuously make the orders of 3 at a time, 3 at a time, 3 at a time. Next slide, please. Finally, reimbursement. So again, Heidi talked a lot about, the purpose behind the reimbursement. We're happy to support that. I already mentioned we get had plenty of requests for reimbursement on this. But if you do need reimbursement, there's a couple of items that we have to kind of click through here in terms of the the W-9, et cetera. But all you have to do to get your reimbursement is simply to email us at info@takeback.org, put, reimbursement in the tagline and the subject line, and we get that turned around relatively quickly. I did see it. How often are you able to order 24? Get about 50. Oh yeah, I mean, you can do multiple orders. So yeah, absolutely, don't worry about that. 24 is the happy number for shipping them and how they come. So inbound. So that, yeah, it's just the 24 is what works from a logistics standpoint. So you can order multiple. We want to make sure you have them. So yeah, just order away. Okay. All right. So I think that kind of sums up, what I had to talk about. If you hit the next slide, if you need anything from me, this is my contact information. So either, email me, call me, that's okay. If I don't know the answer, I'll get you somebody who does. Those people are the experts who facilitate this every day are available to me very, very simply, very, very readily. And I will be happy to make sure that you get everything you need to know in order to facilitate the program.
Chris, that was super helpful. Thank you so much. And one other quick question that Jesus asked was, could your HHW contractor be reimbursed on our behalf? So if they have a contractor, could that?
Yeah, I would have to check on that. I don't see why not right off the top of my head. But I'll check. I don't see why not. But Jesus, if you have any questions, my contact information is here. Just let me know and we can work out whatever we need to work out.
Very good.
You can order up to 4 boxes of 20 placement.
Jesus says thanks.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah. Yes.
All right. Well,
thank
you so much for being here, Chris. Again, we really, really appreciate it. And we'll move on quickly now so we can get our other presenters heard. So you will learn about how they've experienced this. We'll go ahead now to turn over to Ashley, Louisiana with RecycleSmart and her experience with this program. And actually, that's kind of what tipped this off. I got the nicest email I've gotten all year, I think, from Ashley saying, thank you for your 10 years of hard work. I just got my first check for $32,000. So it made my day. And then I realized other locals weren't getting their reimbursements. So that's why we're doing this webinar. So thanks again, Ashley, so much for all that you're doing to share this.
Thank you. No, good morning. I appreciate the invitation to be here. I've been with RecycleSmart for about 16 years, so I have seen this program from planning to roll out to now EPR. So I'm extremely appreciative to Heidi and all the stakeholders across the state of California for years, about a decade of hard work to get these EPR programs in place. So I will briefly talk about our sharps disposal program and how I navigated through the reimbursement process. Next slide. So RecycleSmart is a JPA, a Joint Powers Authority here in Central Contra Costa County. We have 6 member cities and towns. We are not the entire county. We also do not have, own, or operate an HHW facility. The main function of our agency is to hold the franchise agreements with our waste haulers for recycling organics and trash, with our processing facilities, and then we provide a lot of other recycling services and outreach programs. We have a population of about 233,000, and we started planning for disposal for medications and sharps back in 2011, 2012. As we all know, there was a big statewide effort at that time led by Heidi and the Product Stewardship Council for EPR. These photos were fun to dig up. I knew that I had some. These were from back in 2013 when we organized a lot of public education forums. That's Heidi there speaking back in 2013 and looks the same 10 years later. And then we were going to a lot of our elected officials and board of supervisors to press for local and statewide action. But in response to the real immediate needs to provide these programs for these pretty dangerous materials, we partnered with the Central Contra Costa Sanitary District Central San is both a wastewater treatment facility and they operate the local HHW facility here in Martinez. So due to, the water quality concerns, Central San had an interest in medications and RecycleSmart had an interest in needles and getting those out of our recycling streams. Each agency over the last decade has separately managed each program. So RecycleSmart manages and pays for sharps, and Central San manages and pays for medications. And then we partnered a lot, especially in the beginning, with outreach and education. Next slide. So we built our sharps program into our franchise agreement with Republic Services, our current waste hauler. This is the actual franchise contract language, if it's helpful. Republic contracts with Trilogy Medwaste for collection, and the bins are serviced weekly or bi-weekly. They're located at very convenient locations, mostly at police stations. Typically, the two bins, medications and sharps, are directly next to each other. I probably should have shown that. But where there wasn't space, or maybe the police department didn't want it at the time, then we did go to City Hall and fire stations. And then we have our newest bin that was put in about 5 years ago is at a big senior living community called Rossmore and Walnut Creek that has over 10,000 residents, and that gets a lot of use. Next slide. So here's our collection data since 2012, and I think what I'll be looking for here is if these mail-back EPR programs for sharps start to meet the needs of our communities and if our numbers go down. From what I've seen so far, although these seem to be just rolling out over the last 6 months or so, our numbers haven't gone down yet, but I'll be closely monitoring that over the next year or two to determine what we want to do. Do we want to keep our program, or do we want to switch to, doing outreach and education for the mail-back program? So we will need to continue to monitor this data to determine what we want to do over the next year. I guess the way that I looked at it is that we have a program that works. Our residents are familiar with the bins. They're getting good use. We don't have collection issues. So if there is a reimbursement process, that's where I'm going to start instead of interrupting the program. And then the application process for reimbursement was on my mind, and a big consideration of like staff time and if that would be part of us keeping the program or not. But I was pleasantly surprised with the ease of the application process. So next slide. So just to close out, this is my actual application to Med Project. I selected Med Project because I think, last year they were one of the only approved vendors at the time. And then Central San, who does medications, was also going with Med Project. So just for consistency locally, that's what I did. But I would definitely suggest, and I think moving forward, I will definitely contact each vendor and get, more information and potentially work with both if needed. So I think that is one thing that's kind of missing, is which vendor do you choose? And I think you have to do your own, investigating to kind of pick that vendor. Because of the nature of our JPA and how our program was set up, I had a little bit more of a challenge in the beginning that I hope none of you will encounter, of kind of explaining our JPA, explaining a franchise agreement, our rate setting process, how our program was set up. So I had to do multiple calls over multiple months with multiple people at Med Project, and I kind of put together this cover letter just to reiterate how our program works. I think going forward, since they have all the information, it'll be very simple going forward. It's really just contact information, reimbursement request, and then your backup invoices. So the whole process is extremely simple and efficient. And then Republic Services got the check within like 2 weeks. I was really shocked at how fast the reimbursement got to them. So very efficient. My only feedback, it seems like from earlier statements, the jurisdiction or the agency does have to request the reimbursement, but I think that does leave some room for error, because you have to have your own, the jurisdiction or the agency has to have a good internal process of when they want to apply for reimbursement. So that leaves room for forgetting a month or forgetting altogether, or you leave and a new person doesn't know. So setting up a good internal process of when you will apply And then if, in the future, if there could be more structure, I think we're all used to, getting alerts and notifications and applying once a quarter or once a year. So more structure, would be helpful in the future. And that concludes my presentation. Next slide has all of my contact information.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Ashley. I did notice in the chat, Jessica Aldridge with Athens, which is a waste hauling company. They asked about getting a one-pager about the programs, Chris. So I think we should look at trying to get a handout together that, with both of the organizations that are getting the website up together, so that the public has one place to go to get all this information. And we would be happy to share that with all of our contacts too, to make sure that it's easy for them. The hauler should not be, or the counties individually creating a new sheet. That just is a waste of a lot of people's time. And that was the whole point of this. So thank you again, Ashley, for sharing your story and how much money you're saving and how fast you got your money back. But again, this means somebody on staff has to be pinging and have a tickler in their calendar to make sure you're getting reimbursed and they know how to do it. So very good. So we'll go ahead. I don't see any other questions for clarification. We've got about 15 minutes. So I want to turn it over now to Courtney Scott with Zero Waste Sonoma. And thank you again, Courtney, for joining us and sharing your story.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This is really exciting, and all the progress we've made over the last year with SB 212 has been really beneficial. So I'm excited to share this with you. So next slide. Just an intro to who Zero Waste Sonoma is. We are also a joint powers authority. We represent the 9 cities and the county, all within Sonoma County. Our responsibilities are household hazardous waste, organics, zero waste and reporting, and outreach. Next slide. So I'm going to share a little bit about how we are participating in the SHARPS programs. For me, I am the Household Hazardous Waste Program Manager, and so I do accept SHARPS through our HHW programs. Our HHW programs include a permanent facility, a weekly temporary event, and a door-to-door pickup. And we accept SHARPS in all 3 of those avenues. So we do have to order our own SHARPS containers. For the ones we order are 43-gallon containers. So we do unfortunately have to pay for the containers right now, but the transportation and disposal costs are covered. And we did choose Med Project for this one simply because they were the first to reach out to us, the first stewardship group to reach out to us, and we really wanted to get started. So we chose Med Project for the disposal and transportation piece and reimbursement piece. Anybody out there looking to register with Med Project can register at the link that I have provided there. As far as I know, this is not a public link, and I don't think that you can find this link from their website. I think you need to just know that this link exists and type it in. So we did receive a paper in the mail with this link, and I believe that's what you'll need to do as well. And if you're not finding a letter being sent to you, you can also contact california@medproject.org and explain that you're an HHW and you want to register, and they should send you that link. So this program for us started in September because that's when we were first allowed to start partnering with Med Project. So the fiscal year 22-23 stats that you see here are from September to June. So we collected almost 7,000 pounds of sharps, which is 113 containers. And each container, like I said, is 43 gallons. And then that equated to over $12,000 in savings once I requested reimbursement from Med Project. Next slide. So this is just what you will see once you do have a Med Project account. This is how you request reimbursement. It's really simple. All you have to do is start an end date for your collection, the amount that you want reimbursement for, and then the total weight, which you should have from your manifests and BOLs. And then you upload a copy of your invoice so that there's proof that you need to be reimbursed, and that's it. And then usually I get paid within a month of submitting this. Next slide. Okay, so we also then partner with the Drug Take Back Solutions Foundation for sharps, but we do not use them for the disposal and transportation, but we do use them for containers and outreach. And so they're really cool because you can actually go on their website and request, actually we discussed it in the chat earlier. If you're an HHW, you can order up to 4 boxes that contain 24 containers inside. So you can order 4 up to 4 at a time. And this is an image of what you do receive. So it is quite a lot of packaging. And what we've experienced at our HHW facility is that when someone is at our facility and asks for these containers, oftentimes they want to bring the container back to us. And so there's no need for all this mailing equipment. All the boxes and tape and all that stuff is for the mailing component. So we found that a lot of our residents don't actually want to mail it back. They want to bring it back to HHW. So I did talk to Chris about this, and hopefully in the future we'll be able to, HHWs will be able to order the containers without all the mailing information to just reduce some waste there. The other piece of feedback is that we've heard a lot of people in the rural areas have to use PO boxes, and that these are too difficult for them with their PO boxes. Okay, next slide, please. So this is actually my favorite piece of the Take Back Foundation's website. This is the portal once you log in as an HHW to order the bulk shipments. You get this really cool dashboard, and it shows you how many containers you have ordered up to this date, shows you how many have been returned in the mail, and then the pounds of lifetime. And so you can see that I've received I've ordered a lot more sharps containers than have been returned in the mail. So this says I only have 3 returned in the mail. And that's because what I just explained on the last slide, most of our folks just want to bring them back to HHW and not have to deal with mailing them back. But I really love this data. The unfortunate piece is that when someone does bring the sharps container back to HHWs, it does not get scanned, and that data does not get part of this, does not get included into this report. So that's a bit of a bummer, but it's still a really fun feature to have. Next slide. Okay, medication. So we, like Heidi said earlier, in Sonoma County, we were trying to get a meds ordinance. And then our 2017, 2018, and 2019 fires really derailed this. So we did not end up getting our own ordinance in Sonoma County. So that's why we are also partnering, or also utilizing SB 212 for medicines. So in Sonoma County, we have a group of local agencies called the Safe Medicine Disposal Program. And we all manage different collection bins throughout the county, mostly at local agencies like law enforcement and some pharmacy locations. Now, Med Project and probably the foundation did reach out to these locations, and some of these locations told Med Project, like, oh, we actually don't need your bins because we already have our bins, because those locations didn't realize that their local partner jurisdictions, were paying the bill. So I would definitely suggest that if your agency manages any other kiosks in someone else's building, please follow up with the people who own the building or manage the building so that they know why it's important to swap over to these new Med Project bins, because we don't want the local governments to be funding this anymore. This should all be funded through SB 212. So at this point, I think most of our bins have been turned over to stewardship organizations, but it did take some extra conversations with the hosts of the bins to make sure they understood why we were doing this. As far as I hear, it's been a really smooth transition for everybody. So next slide. Now, the last thing is that local jurisdictions can request outreach material from both of the stewardship organizations. Here's a picture of some Med Project ones. They're both in English and Spanish. And then on the right, you see some of the Take Back Foundation's outreach. These are geared towards residents. So we do a lot of outreach at booths, local booths and fairs. So we bring these with us when we do that, just to help make sure that the residents know about their options, because it's still really new and there's still a lot of people that don't know. And next slide. And that's it for me. So thank you so much.
Wow. I hope you guys are appreciating how much great information we're getting out here. And I see in the chat, you know, Fresno is saving a bunch of money, $30,000 every 2 months for 4,000 pounds. And they're using Med Project. And Med Project was first, so a lot of you just signed up. And but Chris is now there too, so you have a backup if you've already gone with Med Project, if there's any issues. But we just want to open it up for questions. If there's anything else, we've only got 5 minutes. I hope this has been incredibly helpful to you all. Again, we'd appreciate if you join us. We've got e-weekly newsletters. We talk about all this stuff. We are fighting the good fight so all of you can save money and get these costs off of you so you can focus on other things. And I thought some excellent questions were also brought up about how the haulers are still being asked by local governments to do needle collection in the contracts. That should not be happening. Nobody should be asking the haulers to do this work and charging you for it. You should have this all be getting paid for by these programs. And it's no longer the hauler's job, except to maybe give out, you know, help share the information with the residents through their education materials about how to go get the containers and where to drop medicines off and so forth. But please look at your contracts and don't expect, this is the shift that we're making to produce a responsibility. The haulers will not be doing all of it. There'll be a pass through and you will be all saving money. Okay, are there any other questions? Does anybody want to ask a question? Let's see, Marie asked a question. Can you keep the bins you have and request reimbursement for medications? Or how does that work, Chris? If somebody already has a bin and they call you, what do? Can you reuse that bin? Because they're very expensive. I remember putting hundreds of them out and we were spending, I think, $1,200, $1,400 a bin.
Yeah, you're right, Heidi. They are very expensive. In that scenario, probably not, because the way ours work, you know, the bin is a specific size, the containers inside the box and the shipping liners and all that are a very, very specific size, right? We want it to be compliant with DEA. So if you have a kiosk in your location, you're interested in flipping it out, let me know. We'll figure something out. One way or another, we can get that replaced for you. Obviously, you know, that's at no cost to you, but I do understand that they're very expensive and why you'd want to continue using one that you already paid for.
Well, just physically moving them and damaging the floor. They have to be secured to the floor. I mean, it's a lot of work and they are DEA compliant or they wouldn't be there. So, you know, I guess I would encourage reuse every time if there's a possibility, even if you can rebrand it, put new labels on it or something that's required. But if they can, I mean, and you're going to provide them with a whole new bin, then they have to, again, that adds a lot of hassle because then they have to take the old one out, move it, find something to do with it.
Yeah. Yep.
I can tell you, South Lake Tahoe, where I have a vacation home, they could show you some free bear boxes up there because for garbage. So a lot of them were actually originally bear boxes.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for that. And then would you be willing to share your handouts? So do you have handouts? Is that Courtney? I'm not sure. Those were not your handouts. Those were Med Projects, correct?
Those came from both stewardship organizations. So there is educational material that you can order from both.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And Chris, maybe you could put in the chat exactly how they'd order them from you. So it's easier. And we go back to our last slide, if you would, Victoria. Yeah, so people have our contact information since we're going to wrap this up in 2 minutes. Kimberly says, this is so amazing. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. Love your enthusiasm and hard work. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you too, Kimberly, and all your support from Marin Sanitary Service all these years for our work and funding us. Greatly appreciated. And Jennifer, she is saying, this is a fantastic presentation. Will you be sharing this presentation in email later? Yes. Shasta County, again, love to have you as a member. We are going to send to all of you a follow-up that has the link to this recording. And also the link to the Cal Recycle promotional item. And we'll probably tag a bunch of you on some social media posts when we wrap it up and share this out. But yes, we will stay in touch with all of you too. We have a listserv, by the way, if you're a member, for just medicines and sharps. So this is where you could talk amongst yourselves too. And here are people nationally that have the same sort of issues. If you're interested in joining us, again, very affordable. And Jessica Allridge, so contact the stewardship organization. Okay, so you're each talking to each other and helping to share information. Fantastic. Mary Cousins, how do these programs deal with veterinary medications and sharps? Thank you so much for asking that. Every time we do a bill, there's always what I call throwaways, things that we really, really would like to get, but sometimes due to negotiations, we can't get. So I have to just tell you that veterinary medications, the ag industry lobbied very, very heavily to get anything to do with animals out of the bill. And we determined that it was not that big of a deal because nobody's checking these medicines to determine if they're vet meds or human meds, right? So they happen to get in there. Yeah. Same with the needles. I mean, how can you tell?
Well, I'd like to clarify too, because I did like a month of research on this for our local vets. And in the bill, the definition of meds clearly does not allow animal medication, but the definition of sharps leaves it vague and there is no answer. So I have told our veterinarians that they can request sharps containers, and the foundation has been great with that as well.
Excellent. See, this is why I love doing these, because we all learn from each other. And I know we're at time, so I'm going to just say one more thing. We'll also, if there's any other questions that you have, put them in the chat and we will set up a little document so that you can see the answers to the questions, and we'll send it out with the link and the follow-up so that if you didn't get your questions answered, we'll do that separately and make sure all of you get your questions answered. And I did see one about sharps collected through community cleanups. Those are considered not covered, because that was another big thing that Assembly Member Ting was going to deal with afterwards, was the homeless population and the needles. They consider those not properly used, but I say, hey, somebody bought the needle and the producers profited from the needle. So to me, that should have been covered, but it wasn't. So we need to get back to that as far as a cleanup bill, in my opinion, because it wasn't really officially covered. Okay, so with that, I'm going to have to wrap it up. Put your questions in the chat. Join us, please follow us, share. This is what we do and this is how we help. And there's lots more information that we put out to our members. So thanks again so much to Chris, Ashley, Courtney, and my team, Jordan and Victoria, for making this a successful webinar. And I hope you all save a bunch of money and have new ways to promote this program. And okay, thanks so much. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you.